Hello everyone. I can't find much in the news, so I only have one story to talk about today. In Colorado, the state's highest court has ordered a county clerk to stop issuing marriage licenses to homosexuals. Colorado does not legally recognize same-sex marriages, but the clerk was emboldened by the Utah ruling and started giving out licenses. There is a link to a news article in the description. In light of the lack of news to discuss, I've decided to go ahead and fulfill some people's requests for more details in regards to my plan to nonprofit now, as opposed to waiting until Monday. The idea came to me as a reaction to two social issues, the first being poverty in America being a growing problem, the second being that people are complaining about having to support the poor through government programs, while at the same time saying they have no problem with helping, but just do not like the idea of being forced into doing so by default of being a taxpayer. I started to think about this and try to come up with a way to solve both problems with one fix, and so the research began. A large number of these programs are actually other nonprofits that receive government funding to help with costs, such as homeless shelters. The shelters themselves are little more than a roof and a meal, with little to no resources applied to actually fixing the problem of homelessness and/or poverty. In fact, some of these shelters only offer a roof for the night and kick people back out onto the streets in the morning. This was inadequate before the economic crisis that significantly increased the number of households living in poverty. While homelessness itself has statistically declined in the last few years, the studies do not account for people, such as myself at one point, who were living with family members to avoid living on the streets. Also, while homelessness has declined, poverty has increased. In 2008, 13.2% of Americans lived in poverty. By 2012, this had increased to over 16%. This is in the U.S., and I am sorry to those of you watching this that are not U.S. citizens, but being one, I must be first concerned with alleviating the problem here as much as I can. My organization, as is planned out so far, will create a place to live for people living in poverty, including homeless individuals and families. It will provide a roof, food, and resources for finding work. It will provide daycare to parents living within the shelter. Also, I will bring in professionals from various fields to help educate the people living in the shelter on topics such as personal finance management. It will be a contained unit where all the residents' needs are fulfilled at no financial cost to them. The key term there is no financial cost. The shelter will not be a free ride. It will not just allow the people to sit there and do nothing but consume the resources provided to them by donations. The residents, as planned so far, will be required to give back to the communities that are taking care of them by doing volunteer work. They will be required to have a job or be looking for a job, and will have to show they are looking. High school dropouts will be required to get their GEDs. These little requirements are meant to serve the purpose of gaining an understanding that a healthy society recognizes its inherent interdependence, stress the importance of personal accountability, as well as the importance of knowledge and education. This whole idea is still in the planning phase, and I am still writing up the plan for it. I actually stopped working on it for a long time, but now in the spare time I do have, I try to work on it. I also have a lot of research to still conduct, especially now that certain changes have taken place that affect those living in poverty. Funding such an organization is where the problems arise. I do have ideas, but definitely need to do research here as well. Remember, I actually set this project aside for quite some time, and am now just picking it back up. The one thing I want to make clear, and I don't think I did this in yesterday's video, is that any money earned through Patreon and the store will actually go toward the weekend giving, as was depicted in the video clip. I know that these two sources of funding could never hope to even make a dent in the costs of the organization I am planning to create, other than for licensing, which is what I meant by startup capital, which I should have been more clear on. The point I was trying to make yesterday was that until I am able to get this organization started, using funds earned from Patreon and the store to do some smaller giving projects, like the people in the video were doing, sounded like a really good way to use the money in addition to maintaining this channel. After all, this channel so far has had a $0 cost and doesn't actually need money put into it. It only takes an insane amount of time to keep making videos on a daily basis. I was simply trying to come up with a second use for any money that patrons or store customers provide that did something meaningful. So the money you spend at the online store or donate through Patreon will go toward the smaller, more immediately doable idea.